Okay, we'll get started. Good morning, everyone. Mahalo for joining us for this month's Value Added 101 webinar series. So my name is Hailey. I'm the Product Development Manager here at the Wahoo Value Added Product Development Center. Along with me on the Zoom call, there's also my team. So I'm sure some of you are already familiar with our center and what we do, so I won't spend much time on that. So today's webinar's topic is selling on shelf, evolving your brand and packaging. And I'll be moderating today's conversation with our two guest speakers. So we wanted to spotlight this topic of packaging in developing your product in that journey, because whether you're getting your first product onto shelves or if you're just thinking about the next stage wherever you are at, today's discussion will be all about understanding when it's time to take the next step, improve or evolve your packaging, and some partners and resources that can support those improvements and changes. So, and of course, each packaging decisions will highly depend on your product type and processing type, and what equipment and kitchen you have to work with. So I think this will be a really useful and fruitful conversation. And please, we always love for this webinar format to be as interactive as you have questions for. So please feel free to drop any questions in the chat. We have our team moderating, as well as you can use the raise your hand or emoji button if you would like to make a comment during our panel discussions. So our two guest speakers, we're excited to be joined by Jina Wye, founder of Okonokai, who will be sharing her real story behind the brand's evolution. Jina is our client and alumni from our cohort, Aina Tamekeke, as well as our kitchen user. So we've worked with her on each step of her journey growing the brand. Our next guest speaker also that we have is Tessa Asing, Hawaii Client Success Manager at Savor Brands, one of our favorite local packaging supplier companies, who will be sharing her insights into the packaging design process and what makes a successful collaboration between a food brand, a founder, and the creative partners and resources. So, and from my own perspective as a product development and technical support consultant, I'll also be tying the conversation after their presentations back to how packaging isn't just about aesthetics or the design, your logos, things like that, but also plays a critical role in protecting your product's quality, stability, and shelf life, as well as how it stands the format on shelf. And ultimately determining, what makes it onto the shelf, as once it leaves your direct to consumer channels, it will be your face and the doing the sales for you. So a lot of times we don't realize how much packaging matters in our industry. So before we begin, I'd love to get to know who's joining us today. So for those of you in the room, if you don't mind, please drop a message in the chat and let us know what products you currently are producing or hope to produce if you're in the ideation stage, and what type of packaging you're currently using or plan to use. That will help us steer the interactive discussion after the presentation section. Of course, any questions you already have, feel free to drop that as well. So with that, let's get started. Jina, would you mind introducing yourself and telling us a little about your brand Okonokai and how it began? And I'm gonna share the slides.
Sure. Hi guys, thanks everyone for joining us. I think this will be just a lot of fun. My name is Jina Wye. I am the founder of Okonokai. We make a variety of snacks and seasonings made from locally grown seaweed. So I make they're crackers, gluten-free and vegan, as well as furikakes, and we also sell the sun-dried seaweed itself, more as like an ingredient. I have a lot of other new ideas and products on deck, but for now, like that is what my assortment is, and I can tell a little bit more about that journey. But I'm very excited to be featuring and highlighting native Hawaiian seaweed. It's grown only here in Hawaii and nowhere else in the world, so just very unique from like a product standpoint. So yeah, about me, as Hailey mentioned, I was in Ainatimakeke cohort number 3. So that was a little bit over a year ago. I don't know if I mentioned, but I've been in business now for about a little over 2 years, like 2 years and 2 months, I believe. My career has been mostly in marketing, working in consumer packaged goods or CPG, as some of you guys know, working with a lot of various stage brands, early stage, late stage, small companies, up to like larger conglomerates. But as a marketer, I've worked pretty deeply in designing packaging, evolutionizing, growing like as brands or products change, like just like overseeing that evolution, launching new products, figuring out like how to communicate and market products. So that's actually like where I'm strongest in. Although I guess for my business, I spend the most amount of time working on like supply chain challenges, but we can talk about that later. I also was in Mana Up cohort number 9. I also did that I think almost 2 years ago now, and I started on Mana Up almost directly after I finished. Actually, literally the day I graduated from Aintimakeke, I started Mana Up. So that was just a really good sort of like 1-2 punch I had on Aintimakeke to sort of set that foundation to help me launch my business. And then Mana Up is really focused on like growing and scaling your business and giving you a lot more, I guess, in-depth tools to grow that business. I got into seaweed originally because I had breast cancer about 10 years ago, and I started doing a lot of research about foods that are cancer fighting, high in antioxidants. And seaweed is actually at the very top of that list. It's consistently listed as like one of the top 5 foods. So I just started like testing and buying a lot of seaweed from all over the world, just trying to learn a little more, understanding like different flavors and textures. And what's interesting is that there's actually like thousands of varieties of seaweed, but most of us really only know like the nori that goes like on your seaweed roll. Or maybe some of you know like that limp seaweed salad that's like also like heavily processed. But there's so much more to it, so many flavors and colors and textures and different like nutritional profiles. And that's what I find really exciting. And I guess is kind of my mission is to get people more interested, exciting in trying different seaweeds and adding it more to their diet as like part of like, part of their daily nutrition. I also just love seaweed. I'm Korean, so I grew up eating it like pretty much every day. If you know Koreans, we eat it as like a seaweed soup for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We have seaweed kimchi. So it's just very heavily ingrained into my own culture. Okay, next slide. So when I first started on MKK, just to back it up, I didn't actually have anything. I just had an idea, which is what's my pitch. And fortunately, they accepted me into the program, telling them I had this idea of taking locally grown seaweed and making it into a snack. When I also started into MKK, I wanted to make the seaweed just like the plain seaweed into like a crunchy snack. And that actually is still my goal, and I'm still working on that. But it requires specific machinery, specific development. I'm just not quite there yet. But at the end of Antimakeke, you have to do like what we call the showcase, where you have to present your product. Everyone tastes it. They invite a bunch of like local influencers, buyers, store buyers, restaurant groups, the whole thing. There's probably, I don't know, maybe close to 100 people or something that attend. And literally like the week before the event, I just was like, what can I do? What can I make that allows me to showcase the flavor of this seaweed, but it's something that I can do in my home kitchen. So just tooling around, I started making these crackers. And what I did is I dried that seaweed, I ground it into essentially like a seaweed flour and baked it into this cracker. So it has this very like seaweed forward taste, but it's like fully baked into the cracker. So essentially what we call the seaweed cracker. Um, For the packaging, this is also like, when I say MVP, I don't know if you guys know that terminology. It's kind of from like the tech world. It stands for minimum viable product. So meaning like it's not perfect. You're just trying to get that product out in the market, get it away for people to like taste it and try it, get feedback, get reaction. And it's used a lot in tech when they're like launching like software and things like that. I don't know how often it's used in food, or I don't even know if it's advised. But for me, it was really important just to like use this opportunity at the showcase to show people what the seaweed was and how it tasted. So I used a bunch of plastic, as you can see, clear, transparent packaging. I had this on hand from like some other project from like a previous brand I had worked on. Didn't even buy it, and I bought the labels, printed them out on my like my inkjet printer here at home. Bought these glass jars where you can see that furikake, that second picture there. And yeah, just hand applied everything, and yeah, just tried to get it out there. I ended up yeah, presenting everything at that showcase, and it was a hit. I had at least like 3 buyers like out of the gate that wanted to bring the product in, including Chef Zone. I remember Roy's, the executive chef from the Roy's restaurants, wanted to bring it in as like use the crackers as like an appetizer to go with their poke in their menu over at Roy's in town. So it was kind of like not what I anticipated, because I just was like trying to look for feedback. And then suddenly everyone was like really into it, really excited. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm making crackers. And that's literally how things just started, because it's kind of been like this boulder that's like rolling downhill now. And I'm always like trying to catch up with it, because I just really was trying to get some feedback and get people excited about the prospect of what I could do with this seaweed. So yes, I only had crackers. I had a furikake that I was testing, and everything is very different. Moving on to the Made in Hawaii Festival, this was only, I believe it was maybe like 3 or 4 months, maybe about maybe 4 months after I graduated. And I signed up for the festival, and this was literally the first time I even sold my product. So again, moving kind of like quicker than I'm, ready for, and kind of crazy, because like I didn't even know what I was going to be, what I was in for with this festival. At the time, we were, and I still do, like DBET sponsors the booths, which I hope you can all like look into that and find out if you have that opportunity. And they allowed us to do only like however many days you could. And I think I did 2 days when I first signed up. So again, I needed slightly better packaging. So I sourced my bags. These, you can see these craft paper bags off of Amazon. I enlisted a designer, just a friend of mine, to design these labels. So just hand applied these labels. What I did like about this packaging is it had this really nice like rustic feel about it. There's like, I don't know if you can see, but there's actually like a clear window that would allow you to like see into the packaging, so you could see what you were getting. And people loved it. And I think this is also something, as like an early stage founder, you should actually really enjoy as long as you can, because people love that rustic packaging. It really feels homegrown. It feels like, that mom and pop business, and they want to support businesses like that. So I don't think there's really any rush to get yourself like shelf ready if you want to live in this space for like as long as you can, because it feels really special. It feels like you're really putting a lot of heart and soul into your business, which I'm sure you are. But then I also, as you can see, I started making business cards. I look sort of official, and my designer developed that first iteration of that logo that you see today. And then the next slide, I'd say it took me another, gosh, probably somewhere between 8 and 10 and 12 months to get to this final packaging. Using that craft paper packaging really helped me just sort of understand what worked and what didn't work. Like the paper was too thin, it was too light. I needed the bag, like the gusset, meaning kind of like the width at the bottom, to be a little bit wider. And I wanted to make sure that bag could stand up. So I actually attended a seminar with Tessa and Savor Brands, sponsored by Aina Timikeke. So, which was great. They showed us like a whole like just assortment of the things that they could do. I presented them with what my needs are, and I had a designer that I worked with, once they sort of assessed which kind of packaging I could utilize, helping me figure out like the width and like making sure I had that zipper closure at the top, something that people could tear away. And the most important thing for me was that it was just as protective as possible. So I actually chose like the thickest possible packaging material, pretty expensive to be honest. It was a really big premium, but it helps protect my crackers and it also helps that bag stand up even better. And this is the packaging that you see today. I think I've had this packaging now for maybe a little bit over a year and a half, and have also launched an additional flavor. I have a new flavor. I don't think it's pictured here, but well, I guess it's not pictured here, but it's that miso cheesy flavor. Hailey actually helped me design and develop this product. I'd say it's probably my second bestseller now. My bestseller is the sea salt, which also rule of thumb, your bestseller will almost always be your most basic flavor, just because for whatever reason people like the most like basic flavors. I knew that would be the case, and it is the case, and that's that blue packaging that you're seeing right there. And I'd say the miso cheesy that I just launched is like a fast follower, and then followed by our spicy gochujang flavor. Next slide. So things to think about in that packaging journey. I guess first, that's not on here, but what I mentioned is like, don't overthink it. Just get that product out there, start testing. You're going to find out so many different things that are working and not working. So my philosophy is don't invest a lot in that packaging until you're really sure what works. I think like a rookie mistake is to like, you want everything to be perfect. You want that packaging to be beautiful. And then you've bought like, I don't know, a couple thousand units of that packaging and you find out it doesn't work. And then now you've just like spent a couple $1,000 and you have to change your packaging altogether. So just invest a little, try things out before you commit to that final packaging. Other things, messaging hierarchy, and this is more like marketing. You want to think about like, how big is that logo? You know, how big is a description of what that product is? A lot of people, especially I think new founders, aren't really thinking, oh, I need to actually explain that this is a seaweed cracker, and it's not quite clear. People don't know what that is. And then that third hierarchy is, of course, all the like information about what the product is, the stuff that's going to go on your back of pack. So be just very thoughtful and make sure that you have a good amount of education without overwhelming your consumer. But your packaging is probably, as far as like a marketing vehicle, more than 50% of your marketing is done by having that really strong packaging, good communication, and the rest of it, like ads, social, all that is kind of like gravy. Protection of your product, as I mentioned, oxidation. I use that super thick material for extra barrier. I've had to also experiment with different ingredients to prevent oxidation because I was finding that my crackers were getting really oxidized early on. So some of it can be resolved with packaging. Some of it you can add things like, what do you call those, like moisture absorbers? So things that you can just consider. And of course, breakage. My crackers are really delicate, so I want to have like a really robust packaging to protect it. USDA regulations, and Hailey can probably help you guys with this. There's like a whole website about like how big the font has to be, like how hot, like you have to explain like the net weight, and there's specific like detailed instructions about how big that font is for your net weight. Or for your nutrition panel, again, there's specific instructions for how big that nutrition panel is and what has to be on there. So there's a lot of documentation out there online. So it's pretty easy if you look it up, maybe use AI to just like distill it so you can understand it as like a new founder. Production, this is another thing that I actually didn't think about and I'm thinking about for my next round of packaging. It is really hard to open these bags, guys. I am the only one on my team. I have a couple workers, but I'm the only one with hands small enough to open these bags. So I have to open them every production so that they can fill these bags. So yeah, think about what's happening. And I know some packaging, you can actually order it so it's already open. I haven't even investigated that, but just something to think about. Maybe having a wide enough mouth or just making it easier in that production process. And then what that looks like with filling them. And then another thing I didn't also think about early on was peg holes. This is something I've added on. I think you can kind of see that here. It's not shown in those early pictures, but that was a request by Foodland because they wanted to be able to merchandise that in a different way, not just standing on shelf. And another thing is like I put there, does it stand up easily? Because I do sometimes have these bags falling over if they're not properly opened during that setup process, or if they somehow get flattened, they fall over. So again, something I know I'm going to try to optimize for my next round of packaging, maybe making like an even wider gusset. This is called the gusset right here at the bottom, so that it stands up a little bit better. And that's all I got. I'm in about like maybe 40 or 50 retailers now. My focus is really just getting as much distribution in Hawaii as I can before thinking about the mainland. And I'm also really focused on trying to develop a seaweed snack, as I mentioned earlier, that is just like a dried, crispy seaweed, just standalone seaweed. So that's my next area of focus. I'll have a whole new development of packaging around that. I haven't even, actually, now that I'm saying it, I haven't even thought about it. But that's where I'll be going next. And yeah, my information's on that next slide. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And with that, I guess I'll hand it over to Tessa.
Thank you, Gina, for sharing your journey. Where can folks order and follow you? I know you shared your
Yes, you
contact.
can order online at my website, okonokai.com, okonokai.com. And you can buy it. It's at all the bougie foodlands, like Foodland Farms, Kahala Market. It's at the military commissaries, Dean and DeLuca at the Royal Hawaiian Center. You can check my website. There's like a lot of like smaller boutique stores and hotels, but or you just order online. I do free shipping in Hawaii if you order over a certain amount, and then I also ship to the mainland.
Mahalo, Gina. So I'll pass it over to Tessa, and as Gina mentioned, one of the key parts of the process is the partnership with your supplier, your designer, and all the players that come in to create each iteration of your packaging. And in the early stage, a lot of you founders in that beginning stage is probably doing it yourself, all of it. But as you grow and Tessa can shed light on what they do at Savor Brands and how to work with them. So Tessa, I'll let you, I'll unshare my
I'm gonna,
screen.
yeah, and I'll share.
I'll stop share so you can share.
Okay,
Go ahead.
okay, great, thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Tessa Ossing. I am the client service success manager for Hawaii at Savor Brands. We are a packaging company that has been in the Hawaii market for over 20 years. And basically, we partner with companies to offer strategic packaging expertise, innovation that builds your brand, as well as creating an ecosystem of success for you all. So Gina had a great story, and basically she touched on everything that I'm going to be talking about and sharing. So this is really going to be a quick overview because I know people will have questions about everything she shared, and then maybe the things that I offer will just kind of solidify or just support what she's talking about. So basically, packaging is more than just a container, right? It's going to protect your product, like Gina said, and there's a process involved in trying to vet what type of materials are going to protect your product. It communicates your brand and supports your growth. So it's also going to create that first impression. She was talking about marketing. It shares your story, and then it also improves your perceived value on the shelf. The first thing that I normally do when I'm talking to clients or just prospects and they're asking for help is I like to find out where you are in the market. So there's basically 6 stages or phases that you find that your brand might be in. Of course, the first one sometimes is a farmer's market, something very direct, consumer to consumer. Then as you grow, you're going to go into a direct, online, wholesale, business to business, regional retail, distribution, and your big box retailer. So all of these, basically you're trying to determine where you're starting from because that really will be affecting it will guide the discussion that we have as you come in to understand what kind of packaging and all the requirements that are involved. When you're in a farmer's market stall, you have free reign to do whatever you'd like to do. But as you go out and you talk to wholesalers that are going to be bringing your product into their place, like a Foodland Farms, is that they do have certain requirements because they're only going to offer a certain amount of lineal space to you, right? To share that. Some key discovery checklists that I'm talking to clients when they come in is, what's your product? It all begins with your product, and basically what do I need to do to help protect it? So Gina talked about making sure that her crackers were nice and fresh. The material that she is using that is very thick is going to be a foil. It's going to be basically a film that has your best moisture barrier, light barrier, and oxygen barrier. And so that's what it was easy working with her because she really had a specific idea of what she needed to do for her product. A lot of times, people aren't aware that films are created differently. And so there's a portion of education that goes through. And so when I'm talking to people, you can share the ingredients that the product is made of. I always look at, do you have any oils? Are there nuts? Do I need to preserve the freshness of that nut? Is there any acidic ingredient? Kimchi has tomato, vinegar. You've got to make sure that the inner lining of your packaging is going to stand up to whatever product is going into that. Also, we talk about preferred packaging format. What are you using now? Is it working for you? Is there any way that you want to improve that? Here, Gina started off with a clear pouch. It looked like it was a tri-seal pouch, very easy, no gusset. So, she's moving into something like retailers. You do need something that will stand on a shelf. So her original format of a tri-seal pouch wouldn't necessarily work as she's scaling up. So all these conversations are had. SKUs, how many flavors do you have? Are you starting just with one? Are you rolling out multiple? We try to find ways of working that into your budget. And then, very important, as Gina's found out, is production, right? How are you working manually, like manually filling these bags or boxes? Or is there a possibility that in the future you want to go automated? So all these are discussed because the type of packaging that we're going to recommend is going to fulfill those goals. So you might want to start, let me backtrack. You might be manually filling for today, and then that's what we're going to find out packaging. But say you are going to start researching a co-packer, right? That's going to help you with automation. There's another discussion down the road as you do that research. Brand positioning and target marketing, that also affects packaging. What are you bringing to the table? Do you already have your brand assets, your logo in place, your artwork? Do you have a designer to support you as you move into printed packaging? Regulatory and labeling information. I'll talk about that down the road. And then we also talk about the market consumer insights that you might have to offer. And then also, I always ask, what is your target? Do you have a target and a launch time to have your packaging? One of the case studies I have this picture of Kahuku Farms. So they were great. They start, as all farms, they start off with stock packaging. But the way that we got her to the spouted pouches, I had to solve a problem for them. So during 2020, they were finding a challenge finding bottles to support their sales. And they ended up buying all types of sizes of a bottle. And so they would put one size on their online, one size in their farmer's, store, and another size in a retailer. And they were just going nuts trying to manage that inventory. So when they came to us, I suggested a spouted pouch. And that was a new idea for them. Spotted pouches really isn't, you know, highly focused out in the marketplace, but she was really willing to make that attempt to try. But in the end, and that was what, 5, 6 years ago, she finds that this has been the best solution for them in terms of fulfilling their orders and help scaling themselves up. Savor Brands mainly focuses on flexible packaging as well as boxes. So I'm kind of focusing on this, but hopefully the information can be applied to any type of rigid packaging that you might be using, whether it's bottles, paper tubes, or plastic tubs. But for flexible formats, pouches are selected based on the product, merchandising and your display requirements. They are available in pre-made pouches. So I have a selection of, standard pouch, a T-shaped pouch, which is like your potato chip pouch, a tri-seal pouch, which is what I think Gina was in her clear bag, the spouted pouches I just spoke of, a side gusset pouch, as well as a quad seal, or what some people refer to as a flat bottom pouch. This is what traditionally coffee is packaged in right now. The other format is going to be roll stock. And roll stock is when the image or the impression of your bag is printed on a roll, and then you will have the machinery or you will be hiring a co-manufacturer to pack it for you. And this is where they're able to fill and convert that roll stock into your package. And then I have a really quick, just a display of what a moisture barrier and the materials that it's made of. So for a bag, you always have that outer protective layer, the foil layer, similar to what Okonokai is using. That's a moisture resistant. And then also the inner layer, which is going to be your food sealant layer, as well as your food safe layer. There are a variety of material structures that you can use, not only foil. That's going to be your premium, your best barrier for oxygen and moisture. But the next step down would be a metallized polyester, which is also a silver film. You normally see that in potato chip bags. And then there also is the a PET, which is like a clear polyester. Most of your snacks on the snack shelves are use that, and then the BOPP, which is a biaxial oriented polypropylene. Each film has its own purpose. So, your supplier should be talking to you about that, and it's going to be based on what your product needs. Then we move into premium boxes. I like this. This is like the fun aspect. It not only can be for to contain your product, but a box really elevates your brand perception and also on the shelf. I find that boxes are ideal for gifting, promotions, as well as subscription offerings from your website. And boxes are going to be probably your most expensive cost in packaging, because right now the paper is probably the highest rate of raw material goods right now. But you have to kind of weigh whether that's something that you do want to add to your collection, because it does add value, to the product. And we all talk about that unboxing, the revealing. Boxes tend to be the ones that can offer that kind of feeling. So boxes are available in either die cut, laser cut, rigid, and foldable rigid. Your most expensive is going to be something that is a rigid. It's already preformed. So you're going to be shipping air. It's basically volume you'd be shipping. The die cut is going to be your affordable entry level, because those types of boxes, though less structured, it offers better storage options for you. And you can make a die cut box look very premium depending on how you finish. So boxes also, you can elevate based on the types of like a spot gloss, matte finish, a soft touch. There's different effects. You also have embossing and foiling that you can use to embellish the box. And then it adds to the collection. So for example, Kahala Hotel, their food product is premium. They're selling their chocolate covered macadamia nuts as well as their cookies at high premium. So the box really needs to reflect, or the packaging needs to reflect, the demand of the price that the price that they're demanding. It really does need to reflect that. The other thing is that as you roll out different product lines, you want to make sure that there's a cohesive feel to it. So you're moving from the coffee bags to your, chocolate box to your cookie box. Everything has something aligned with it. Probably the one element that I find that's really important is always going to be your logo, to make sure the logo is present so that it ties everything together, and also that your color scheme, you can vary colors, but you have to do it in a very mindful way. I know many we start off with stock bags, and as it is very valuable. It does offer you to make mistakes at a low cost. And there's lower minimums. I mean, you can literally buy your bags right off of Amazon, or you can go into one of the retailers here that offer blank bags. There's a fast turnaround. Basically, you're buying from suppliers that have inventory. So all you got to do is put in your order and they ship it to you within a few days, or you go and pick it up. And then normally the packaging is offered in stock material. So you really don't get to choose what that material structure will be. But again, just do a little bit of research versus investing into a printed packaging. It is going to cost you more, but it does add value to your brand. It increases your consumer perception. You're able to customize your material structures. And also it all helps in terms of marketing, because you can really add your story and have a feeling of what your brand goal is. So we have some pictures of Ulumana. So this is how they sell their bag in bulk, with just a clear bag with the label. And then on the other end, they have their fully printed retail bag, which, does help them when they're going to compete for food award recognition. A really great story for Hawaiian Hurricane popcorn is that, they started off selling many, many, many years ago in a clear pouch with a label. And for the longest time, that founder or owner did not want to move into a bag that you don't see your product, but it's going to offer better protection. He was getting a lot of returns from his wholesale customers because the popcorn was not holding up on the shelf for more than 3 months. And so he was almost ready to throw in the towel. And so when he came to our company to ask, what could he do to help, just improve the shelf life, we basically told him he's going to have to go into a metallized polyester, just because it's going to, keep the shelf life or extend it further. So begrudgingly, he did it. And he came up with, we helped him develop his look, his very colorful, and it's a very iconic packaging, right? So once he started rolling this product out, within months, he started seeing scale up his business scale up. And in fact, in terms of the numbers, he increased by 200%. He was he was pleasantly surprised with that turnaround. And so it just shows you that, depending on where you're going, where you want to go, you do have to sometimes give up your idea of how you started and develop into something that will help you flourish in that new channel. And then helpful insights. Again, I'm repeating myself, but when you invest in your brand, think about your design and how it can strengthen, how you can improve it. Many times I do have people, saying, I'd like to design it myself. And we're more than helpful with them in terms of getting that art ready for printing. But when you work with a designer who can oversee, like really an expert that understands the longevity of branding a product or branding a company, there's a lot of value there. So just consider that when you get to that point, if you haven't already. Compliance, like Gina explained, and I'm sure Hailey will go over it. Details are important. So what we look at as a supplier is when artwork is received, there is nutrition fact panel sizing that's available on the FDA website. We continually refer to that. You normally have to start off with 100% format of that. You can only go down to 80%. So a lot of times people shrink the nutrition facts down to a point that it fits on their panel, but that's not the right way to do. What you have to do is actually switch formats of your nutritional facts. So that's all available. That is one, I guess, pitfall that I've come across. Also, the font sizes for your net weight, font sizes for the nutrition facts. When you're looking and reviewing that, please pay attention to that. And then starting early, giving yourself enough time. When you're investing in printed packaging, you should give yourself at least 3 months prior to just get all your ideas. Start talking to your supplier in advance. Give them idea. This is what I'm looking at. Can you share some ideas? Um, it Giving yourself enough time will bring better results, and not rushing and wasting time and money. So just start early. Monitor your packaging supply. This is especially important when you are already in printed packaging. This is a pitfall I come across all the time. Customers don't have a good tracking mechanism. And so when they're ready to reorder their packaging, they don't have enough time, or we're rushing for them. It costs them a little bit more, right, if they have to airship product in. So if you already have a good monitoring system, that's really, that would be very helpful when you're working with your supplier. Brand consistency, communicate, always, if you can, promptly give feedback so that your projects can keep moving forward and your supplier can help you. And then, we always want to build that strong supplier partnership. I always like when people are giving me problems, because that means they're thinking about what they need to improve upon. So your supplier is there to use their expertise and kind of help you through those challenges. Big Island Coffee Roasters is a great example. We are working like 6 months in advance when they need to make a change on something, especially if they started with our digital printing and then we were converting them into our traditional rotogravure printing. That takes a bit of time. There's some proofing that needs to be done. But it's great all around when both parties can be aligned. And then if you want to come by and talk with me, this is what to expect. We have a few printing options. Digital printing is a 500 MOQ, and it's a lower upfront investment because we're not dealing with plates. The lead times vary depending if you're going to ship it by air or ocean, but we always try to offer the best cost saving possibilities. Our roto printing is a 10,000 minimum. This is when you're already stepping into a high volume, big box kind of sales. The print quality is great, consistency, and it's really ideal for scaling up your brands. And then box printing has a 1,000 piece minimum. Every box can be customized. Your materials can be customized. All of your finishes can be customized. And then in terms of when you call me and schedule a meeting, we would talk. I kind of went over all of the discovery key points. We would sample, I would give you samples, we'd field test, we identify the perfect size for you. Then I create that die liner template for your designer to place artwork. Preliminary quotes are given, final artwork. When we receive the final artwork, then we get it factory ready. So there's going to be a final pre-press proof for approval, final pricing, and then payment done, and then it goes into production. Finally, production lead times. When we're doing digital production, it's 5 to 7 weeks by air and then 9 to 11 weeks by ocean. The reason why we started offering ocean pricing is because the costs of vessel transport is a lot cheaper than air freight right now, especially back in when the Middle East conflict started. Fuel prices just really went out the door. And then for rotogravure and box production, it normally takes a 9 to 11 lead time, but it can fluctuate depending on whether you want to go with printed proofs. That does add time and some other issues depending on volume that you're ordering. So, that I always discuss timelines to map it out for you. And then basically this is an example of a digital order with air freight. So the order's scheduled, it's submitted to production. They take almost a week to get it scheduled into their queue. Then the production with the digital printing approximately takes about 15 to 20 days. Then the air freight. So we do all logistics. So the pricing includes production and delivery to your door. We take care of any customs and tariffs that's kind of worked into the price. And sorry, that's a typo. It doesn't take 2 to 3 weeks to deliver, but we use air cargo. So air cargo normally takes about 10 to 14 days. But we are trying to schedule like a full pallet because it does reduce the cost. And so it does take a bit more time than like a air courier, which normally can take about 4 days to get from China to Hawaii. So yeah. But basically, we're here to help. So thank you so much. And we always believe that your success is our success. And really that's what you need to look for when you're looking for a supplier. Build that partnership because we should be there to support you, So anyway, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tessa, for all that great information. I think because we have about a few minutes left, we have a couple questions in the chat. So please feel free for everyone in the room to continue dropping your questions in the chat for us to cover. I think we've covered extensive, both how to work with Savor, what things to expect, as well as hearing from Gina. So let's just get to some of these questions. Chandra asks, is metal polyester the same as mylar? If so, what is the thickest mill offered? Tessa, would you like
Yes. Mylar is interchangeable. It can be foil, aluminum, or it can be metallized polyester. You really have to find out from the vendor. I find that when people have given me Mylar bags, the test is when you get a pouch, if you put your phone flashlight inside the bag, if you can see the light through it, that's a metallized polyester. If you cannot see the light, that's a foil. So that just is showing you that there is still going to be light penetration in a metallized polyester. I don't like using the word mylar.
So very general. So piggyback on that, I've gotten a couple baked good type, cookie cracker with experience of, like what Gina mentioned, oxidation and staling in a, less than ideal amount of time, where the client may be looking at upgrading their film from, say, cellophane. So is it a standard practice or something you would suggest to ask the supplier for specifications to compare materials to material? And if so,
Absolutely.
what spec or metric would they be looking at, whether it's transmission rate or what are some terminologies to share?
Actually, if they can just ask what the material is, you can ask chat or AI for what the requirements or what the barrier is of that particular material. You know, cellophane is what you wrap your gifts with. There's absolutely no protection. It's like a monofilm. Any monofilm, meaning one structure, is not going to give very much protection other than maybe a week.
Mhm.
When we provide like bags for snacks, say like freeze-dried product, which is really popular, it's been popular, right? And people still want to see the product, that means I have to at least put it in a PET or a polyester material. And then on the inside is going to be a food sealant layer so that you can actually heat seal the top of the bag. So normally that's a PET/LLDPE type
Mhm.
of material structure. You can vary. So with us, we prescribe films. So you can vary a PET from a 12 to a 14 to 15. And that refers to the microns of that specific material. So it varies, but we have standards that we normally will recommend. And I'm happy to talk, you know, like when people have questions. It's very specific to product. So it's really hard for me to give all the details. I really work one-on-one with people.
Yep,
Mhm.
that's great advice. Okay, let's move on to the next question from Fran. Aloha, do you have any advice for cold or frozen food packaging for wholesale? I bake and sell cornbread and um, enjoy seeing the product through the bag. So, yeah, any advice on specifically cold
Yeah,
storage?
we can package frozen food. Again, it's a different material structure. And luckily that structure is somewhat transparent. It's a little bit cloudier than like snack bags, you know, kakimochi bags that you see on the shelf, but you would be able to see product. So, um, you could do it in a bag for cornbread, but depending on where you're gonna, like, is it gonna be a stand-up refrigerator? Is it gonna be a drop-in refrigerator at the marketplace? Those all will determine what format. You might end up, if it's a drop-in freezer, you might need to do like a tray and then a film over it. Um, yeah, but it can be done in a pouch. I mean, cornbread specifically.
Mhm. I'll just add that. So for shelf-stable products, if you have a dry product where it's prone to oxidation or staling, rancidity versus something that you want to protect moisture, um, like a dried fruit, freeze-dried fruit, things like that, or a frozen food where you just want, or a refrigerated food where you want the barrier to say, stand up to freezer burn or be sturdy enough that it doesn't become crunchy and crisp and break open very easily in the freezer, things like that. So you'll be looking at different challenges. Aside from the packaging material and design and printing from what Savor can provide, we can also at the center offer a technical consult to look at whether there's things on the recipe formulation ingredient sourcing front, like what Gina mentioned with antioxidants, and or the little packet in your snack bag. It can be an oxygen absorber or a desiccant, which absorbs moisture versus oxygen. So lots of different options, but packaging material, of course, is the main barrier from environment to your food. So again, you can reach out to Savor as well as us at the center for technical
Yeah,
assistance.
I can add more like a nitrogen flush.
Yeah,
Some
exactly.
people with that you need material for that, but that's another extension.
Awesome. Okay, so last few questions, how expensive it is to design packaging. Um, do we have a general ballpark of maybe a emerging small brand that you're working with? How much budget is for a custom print? And I know it depends on the pouch, but anything you want to share
It
there?
does. So say 1,000 pouches that you're an average size, you're looking at least $1 to $1.50 through digital. That's a digital format. So I would have it a couple $1,000s available as your budget initially, but you're gonna get a good return on your investment.
Yeah.
And whether it's with us or someone else, printed packaging will add value.
Great. Yeah, great point. I would say also, you're saving labor for stickering. And when you're ordering sticker labels, it's not necessarily cheaper than 50 cents to $1. So definitely when you feel ready, and like Gina said, try to get products out there and improve a little bit at a time based on feedback. And Ali had some great questions in the chat as well. Tessa, do you want to share anything in particular about what Kahuku Farm preferred about a spouted pouch? What was
They could, so when they were, the one thing was storage because a pallet, just imagine a pallet of bottles is maybe a couple hundred versus a pallet of pouches was 10,000. So in terms of the scaling and the pricing, and I mean, 1,000 pouches is in one case versus 1,000 in one of bottles is one pallet. So you can see the economics there. They just had to figure out the production. And so they are manually filling, but they did find a filling machine for it. And that's what they continue to use today.
Mhm.
But they use it for a variety of products. Yeah.
Yeah, and as a consumer, just having that squeeze bottle, squeeze pouch is very convenient and is definitely very trendy and allows for the sauces and the liquid butters to be drizzled instead of, scooped out.
Yeah, and they get a lot of tourists. It's very packable. It's transportable without breakage. So there's so many things I could list out, and the process of doing that project was really pretty fun.
Wonderful.
Thank
Well,
you.
I want to thank sincere mahalo to Tessa and Gina for spending your time with us this morning and sharing your insights and your experience with our community. So as always, our webinar series, along with the other previous and upcoming webinars in the Value Added 101 will be posted in our Wahoo Value Added Product Development Center YouTube channel, which will also be sent out in our next newsletter. So if you're not already subscribed, please go on our website, leeward.hawaii.edu/WVAPDC to subscribe to our newsletter, where you can also schedule a tour along with other next events and programs we have. So I do just want to give a shout out to the next webinar in this series that we have. Will be focused on trade show featuring Hawaii Food Industry Association, HFIA, and DBET's High Step program. We'll be talking about various trade show support programs as well as the upcoming Made in Hawaii Festival. So keep an eye out for that on the 28th of this month at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for joining us again. So we'll wrap this up and hope to see you on Instagram and for a tour.